So we are in the midst of the annual meeting. We've opened with the opening prayer. All of the reports are available on our homepage. If you go under welcome, you'll find a link for annual meeting. I am going to put the agenda up. Pat, can you remind me, do we do a vote on accepting the agenda?
We don't need to do that. No.
We don't need a vote on accepting the agenda.
No.
Great. We do need a vote on the annual meeting minutes.
Mike, can I pop in for 1 second?
Yeah.
Just because having reviewed the minutes from last year, I remember that you did announce the floor was open for nominations at the start. Do we still have to have it open for a certain amount of time?
That is correct. Thank you, Pat, for saying that. So with the annual meeting in session at 9:05, the floor is open for additional nominations. If we do not have additional nominations by the end of the meeting, then we will vote on the nominees that have been slated by the nominations committee. If we do have additional nominations, we will have to reschedule and have another annual meeting because we are not set up to vote in such a way that would allow us. So keep that in mind if you're thinking of nominating from the floor. All right, so the minutes were made available several weeks ago up on the website. I will need, in order to hold the vote, I will need a motion for the minutes. Would somebody move that we accept the minutes of the 2021 annual meeting as prepared by our Vestry Secretary, Pat Reddington? Rebecca has moved in the chat. Do I have a second? You can either unmute and say second or a second in the chat. Rebecca Messbarger made the motion.
I second the motion.
Second.
Okay, I'm gonna give that to Rudy Waltz because that's who I heard. Sorry if I didn't see it pop up. So the first, several seconds, but Rebecca Messbarger moved, Rudy Waltz second. What we're gonna do, you're gonna see a poll pop up on your screen and you're just gonna vote yes, no, or abstain. The poll is open. The poll is closing. The poll is closed. And we passed the minutes overwhelmingly. All right. Oh, I can share results. There you go. Not unanimously, but overwhelmingly. All right. Next item on our agenda. 2022 Vestry Elections. Oh, this is where I would have opened the floor, but we've already done that. Thank you, Pat. So now we are in an informal session. The floor has to remain open by our bylaws for 30 minutes, but the rectors, treasurers, and wardens report and the nominees to Vestry were all submitted out to the parish as video reports over the last few weeks. And we said that we would make some room at the annual meeting for questions. So I wonder if there are any questions about the rector's report, the senior warden's report, the treasurer's report, or for our Vestry nominees. Hello to Kara Cummins, the Cummins-Ludwig family, and to the kids. I'm getting chats. You can put a question in the chat or raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask a question. I have a question for Brian. Brian, we have a deficit budget. Are you worried about the future of Holy Communion?
Good question, no, we are planning to have a full year of programming, and everyone knows it's very hard to make plans for how much we're actually going to spend. So the deficit that I have projected, I am highly confident we will beat, or we will surpass in terms of outperforming what I'm saying. So we'll probably end with a small deficit, but it's we have the resources on hand to cover our costs. It might be something that we need to see how we do throughout the year and make plans for the future, but for the time being, we're in good shape.
Any other questions for Brian?
I have for you, Brian. I know that the music school has no longer renting space from us. We do have a Class A kitchen. Would there be any interest in bringing in any kind of catering for the kitchen?
Rudy, thank you. I promise I didn't seed that question, folks, but I would love help getting renters from for the kitchen space, for the other rooms in the church. And that would be my #1 request coming out of this meeting. If any of you know of folks who need office space, meeting space, kitchen space, anything like that, put them in touch with Mike, me, Cheyenne, others. We've got some materials together. We're ready to have those conversations now. And we've got the operation plan pretty well drafted up so we can have those conversations with folks who want it. The community music school leaving is putting a good size hole in our budget. Last year we budgeted $18,000 of income from them. They aren't continuing with us, so that's a good chunk of the deficit that we're looking at. So Rudy, if you know of anybody, let me know.
Other questions?
Brian, I have a question. I noticed on the treasurer's report that you had a pros and cons of positive and negative impacts on the budget. And there was one that I had a question about, which was that a pro that we weren't going to have a housing allowance for Mark anymore. And I was wondering how that affected Julie, if we weren't doing housing for her, and if so, why?
So we do, a portion of Julie's compensation is dedicated to housing. So in that regard, we're going to continue doing at the rate that we had before, but we now have one fewer clergy people that we are providing some compensation for the time being. So Julie is going to continue just as she has been, and a good portion of her compensation will be in terms of a housing allowance.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Brian, I have another question for you. The Gannett House, was there something in your report that is rented out now again?
Yes, Rudy, the Gannon House is going very, very well. Excuse me. We've renewed, middle of 2021, we renewed our lease again with the St. Patrick Center, and the St. Patrick Center continues to move their clients through as they need housing. St. Patrick Center is using Gannon as, I'm trying to think of the term they use. I'm going to say temporary housing to get people off the streets and into something stable. And then as they provide other services, they can get them into, set them on their own and get them into more permanent housing. The St. Patrick Center, and you guys should all pat yourself on the back with this, they said the biggest problem we have with Gannon House is no one wants to leave. It's a very, very nice place to be, and everyone would like to stay. So we're going to continue that. And Rudy, and late in the fall, we had a adult forum session exploring if we want to expand our housing ministry in the future. We have some ideas, and if you'd like to continue that conversation, I'm sure we're going to be looking for options in 2022 and beyond. If you think another house would be good, something smaller, and just helping St. Patrick Center get people set up in their temporary housing, those type of things as well. But I think Mike's on mute.
Yeah, sorry, learning how this all works. Tim asked in the chat, can someone create a description of the facilities we have available to rent? It could be useful for making inquiries. You have something like that, right?
I do, yeah. We drafted up just for this type of conversation. It's almost in a flyer format that we can promote and give people the square footage and the type of resources that we're going to provide, or we can provide. So certainly reach out to me if you'd like to, or hopefully in the near future, we can publish it to the website so that we can just direct people there and they can do a self-service and selection as they see fit.
All right. I'm going to do, unless I'm seeing other questions, hands raised or unmuted.
Hey, Mike, it's Fran Caradonna.
Yeah, Fran.
I just wanted to thank you and Brian and the new vestry candidates and also our senior warden for the work you did in advance to use technology to share your reports with us. I think it was very effective, and I would recommend going forward, even when we're able to all gather in person, that it's a great tool to use, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Fran. Mary Allen, who is somewhere in all of these screens, at the annual meeting, an annual meeting before I was rector, I'm not sure what year, Lucy Krieg might be able to tell us on the archives, but made a motion at annual meeting that was seconded and not quite unanimously passed, but passed, that said that we were supposed to have all the reports available 2 weeks ahead of the annual meeting. And while there's still a little bit of chasing that goes on as we get in the week before the annual meeting, it is really nice to be able to have those go up electronically. And I don't imagine a world where we all sit for a long senior warden and rectors and treasurers report in the meeting itself. A lot more chance to spend time together is what we're looking for in these meetings, I think, going forward.
I think what I especially appreciated was the conversation you had, the conversations that you guys had together on the forum. That really worked well, I thought. So thanks.
I loved having those. You'll hear me say that in the sermon at 10:30 today. Other questions? All right, we're going to go into breakout rooms for a minute. So in your email, there was an email just before the meeting went out that has a link to a form. I'm also going to paste that link into the chat in just a second. But this is the set of questions as well. So we're going to ask you to go into breakout rooms and talk with each other about these three, and you know me, I say 3 questions, but there's more than that here. As we approach 2 years of pandemic restrictions at Holy Communion, what have we learned as a community of faith? How have we lived into our values of welcome, diversity, and community? What challenges have arisen alongside the pandemic or not for our parish? What opportunities have arisen? And where do you see God in the midst of those challenges and opportunities? And then finally, in what way in the coming year would you like to be involved with the church? All right, welcome back, everyone. I am putting in the chat, and it did go out via email, but the form for submitting responses is available up online. We would love to have that for you. Sorry, I had missed the link somewhere, so you now have it in the chat. We do have a recording of the annual meeting in progress, but we won't have recordings of the breakout sessions. Zoom doesn't record breakout sessions, so the only way we'll hear from you is if you share a little bit of your conversation now, or if you submit the form. Any reflections you all would like to share from breakout rooms or questions that arose?
I'd just kind of like to finish what I had started, but I got cut off in the breakout room ending.
Yes,
I just wanted to say that I started my little speech, which is I go to the symphony with 2 masks on. I go to stores with 2 masks on. I talk to neighbors with a mask or 2 on. I take walks with a mask or 2 on. And I am perfectly willing to go to a church full of people with 2 masks on. And I feel like the caution that's been exerted by the bishop, et cetera, I understand perhaps why, but on the other hand, part of me doesn't understand it, since we are all doing so many things with masks on that protect us. And I think if you have children maybe who can't keep a mask, maybe you wouldn't go, but I'm ready to be back and be able to see people and talk to them after church. Hi, how you doing? That sort of thing, and start to re-engage with people. I just really would love that.
I hear you on that, Sandra. I share the frustration emotionally, and I remain really grateful to the group of doctors and PhDs that are advising us alongside the bishop on pandemic practices. For the Omicron surge, it was the bishop's urging that we go entirely online, and I talked with our group about not going all the way there, but keeping an in-person option. And so we created more options rather than just going entirely online. But this latest surge has been emotionally hard. And at the same time, I'm committed to letting the medical experts be the ones who make the calls about Holy Communion. And we do have to comply with what the bishop's office asks us to do as well. but emotionally I'm with you. This has been a harder one. And I'm hopeful that in the coming weeks, as the numbers come down, more will be possible than has been possible even since summer last year. Other reflections or things that want to be shared? Ellis is thanking Charlie Allen for what he shared in the chat. All right. I would encourage you to fill out that form. We would love to hear from you. I know we've been doing a lot of the versions of, surveys and one-to-one with Vestry conversations, but I think staying in conversation with each other is really important, as important as staying in conversation with medical professionals and scientists as we keep moving forward. As a point of personal privilege, I want to note one of our two, the question was asked about housing allowances. So Mark Smith had the title priest associate, and I have named 2 priest associates. You saw that in my report, I talk about it, my written report, I talk about it. You've seen me announce a couple of clergy appointments, Loretta Go as our seminarian and an additional seminarian to Josephine Azenwa, and our rabbi in residence, Rory Picker-Niece, who I'm very excited to hear from here in a couple months in the pulpit. But there are 2 priest associates joining, and I'm excited that Marty Metzler is here with us. Marty, it's really good to have you. Marty has been doing a great deal of work. In the El Salvador report, I talked a little bit about it. I had permission from the person we are hosting, but since May of last year, we have been hosting an asylum seeker. We're calling her Marta. I can't give you many identifying details, but Marty, since late summer, has been a huge help for Marta and for the team. Marty knew about Cristosal before I knew about Cristosal. She visited El Salvador back in the 90s, right, Marty? Yeah, so in addition to doing that work with our El Salvador stuff, Marty has agreed to help us train up when we're able to train up the next iteration of our lay Eucharistic visitors. And I'm just so grateful to have Marty. So we are now at the point where we're close to a vote for new vestry members. First thing I want to do as I continue personal privilege is simply thank our staff. Thanks to Julie and to our seminarians, Josephine and Loretta. Thank you always to Deacon Chester. Chester had a huge honor announced yesterday. The diocese has created a social justice fund, a racial justice fund. And at the Absalom Jones celebration yesterday, it was announced that that fund is going to be known as the Deacon Chester Hines Fund in perpetuity. So yeah, you're getting a lot of applause, but Chester, we're just so grateful we get to have you around here most of the time, and that you're having a little bit less time with the diocese means we get some time with you. If you all are interested in spending some time with Chester, there's a great opportunity coming up. Chester and Josephine and Loretta together are going to be leading a curriculum called Sacred Ground, Conversations on Race, on Monday evenings starting on February 28th. You can register at our website. It's going to be a great curricula. And we're just so grateful for Chester always, but particularly right now leading that with our seminarians. Also, there's no way we could have done this meeting without Cheyenne Lavellet. Her work and administration keeps everything running. We're so grateful to her, and we're grateful to Zach, who is still helping us out on Sunday mornings while we search for a sexton. We're grateful to Heidi Olive and Mark Smith, who were with us for most of the year, and to all of the folks who make this place run. So recognitions of outgoing vestry. I said this in my report, which was the sermon a couple weeks ago. Warren Davis and Megan Under Cooper both had to depart early for really wonderful reasons. Megan and her husband Bryant moved on to Vancouver, and they're doing great out there. I get very jealous of the skiing pictures that they're posting. Warren Davis followed Emily Hillquist Davis, his spouse, when she became the rector of the Church of the Ascension. And so, oh, that's not right. What's the church?
Advent.
Advent, thank you. The Church of the Advent. And so we're glad that Warren gets to worship with his spouse. Clergy spouses are also regularly underthanked. So being somebody with a rather great one, I totally am grateful for what Warren's doing. And in my report and in the senior warden's report, we thanked Shirley Mensah, who is our one standing outgoing vestry member. I said it before and Rudy said it, but Shirley, this parish owes you so much. And we're so grateful for the ways in which you are going to continue to serve around here. Thank you. It is appropriate at this point to applaud all of our outgoing vestry members. Which brings us, and I think we're right on time, to the vote for our new vestry members. If you want to read more about our nominees, I'm actually going to first announce that the floor is now closed for nominations from the floor, and having heard none, I will not be recognizing any nominations from the floor from here on out. Just so that you all are aware, on our website, well, here are our nominees. The nominees for diocesan delegate, I'm always hustling a little bit to make sure that we have all the delegates we need for the diocese. And I'm really grateful that Janice and Rudy have agreed to be nominees to the diocesan convention. And you can read their bios up, but they are also nominated and you'll be voting for them. The vestry has a page inside of our website under welcome. You click on vestry and there's a lot available up there. Our former senior warden Shirley Mensah is largely responsible for this, but our vestry minutes, all of 2020 and now all of 2021 is available. The January minutes will go up just as soon as they are approved by the vestry at our February meeting. We also do a vestry appreciation at the end of most meetings. It gets entered into the formal minutes of the vestry, the record of the parish. And so you can see all the folks that we have thanked, appreciated over the year. You can see the list of vestry, and right now you can see the nominees for vestry and read their bios if you haven't yet. But that page stays up year round, so it's a way to check in on what's going on with the vestry. In order to vote for our vestry nominees and our diocesan convention nominees, I am going to need a motion. Since we don't have any nominations from the floor, we have exactly the number of nominees that we need to elect, which means that we can vote for them by acclamation. That is, we can just applaud for them and thank them for serving. But in order to do that, I need someone to move that we elect the vestry and diocesan delegates by acclamation. Is somebody willing to make that motion?
I'll move.
Pat has moved it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who gave you that second? Shirley Mensah. Shirley Mensah, I'm going to give you that second. All right, so Pat has moved it. Shirley has seconded. And you will see a poll appear. If I can hit the button. Where's the button? There it is. You will see a poll appear. Shall we elect the vestry and diocesan delegates by acclamation? Please vote. The poll is open. I'm going to give you just a couple more seconds. The poll is closing. The poll is closed. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Pat and Shirley. That being said, I invite you to vote by acclamation. Please help me thank our vestry nominees and our diocesan delegates, and your applause counts as an election. You can use the applause chat or you can unmute yourself and applaud. Thank you to all who have been willing to serve, and we're looking forward to serving with you. All right, there is one addenda to my report as rector, and this is something that I do at the annual meeting each year, and that is to share with you the Rector's Cross Award. The Rector's Cross was established a few years ago as a way of recognizing people who have done a huge amount of service for the parish, either just in the last year or over the course of many years. And so this year, there are 3 Rector's Cross Awards. The first, for outstanding service to the Episcopal Church of the Holy Communion, in leadership of the Guild's weekly gatherings, in your consistent visits and calls to those who are lonely, sick, and shut in your many years singing in the parish choir. You exemplify quietly the call of all Christians to seek and serve Christ in those who might otherwise be lost and left out. You have encouraged and supported countless others, including your rector, as they have engaged in the work of building welcoming and diverse community at this church. Inasmuch as you have done these things for the least of these, our sisters and brothers, you have done them for Christ. I award the 2022 Rector's Cross to Marlene O'Brien.
I am honored. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. The second award, for constant care for the Episcopal Church of the Holy Communion, for the hours you have spent counting offerings, ironing linens, and alone on Saturdays at the altar, preparing the church for worship. You have stewarded the resources and leaders of this parish while at the same time offering a listening ear, a kind word, and often a little humor. You have gently supported the work of staff and volunteers and have stepped up or stepped in countless times. In all of this, you have not sought your own glory, and you're probably slightly mad at me for celebrating you. You have sought Christ's. I award the 2022 Rector's Cross to Jean Parker.
Slightly mad. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one last award, and it was decided weeks ago, and I know it will matter to both of our honorees to share their award with one more person. For your stalwart support of the mission and ministry of the Episcopal Church of the Holy Communion, including your support of the music program, even though you faithfully attend the 8 a.m. service where there is no music. In your unwavering service to the Guild, the Vestry, the Robert Committee, and so many other places, you've safeguarded our finances and ensured that our common treasure has been put to use for God's purposes. You have displayed courage in marching and activism, which you came to later in life. In the way you meet each moment and each person with grace, patience, and humor. You have exemplified what the Lord desires for each of us in the words of the prophet Micah. Do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with our God. I award the 2022 Rector's Cross to Sandra Ellis. Yeah. And I know many of you, like me, are tearful. Sandra died this past Thursday after being diagnosed at the end of last year with a very aggressive cancer. And she went a lot faster than a lot of us thought. I really thought just last week I'd have time to present her with the award. I will present the Rector's Cross with gratitude of the Vestry and Parish to Sandra's husband, Dan, and her children, Jeff and Lori. We will update you when the service details have been finalized. Up on our website at holycommunion.net/info, you'll find a link to the memorial book. After the 8 o'clock service, many of us just sat around at coffee hour telling Sandra stories. And I can tell you it would mean the world to Dan if you would sign into that memorial book and tell some stories in the paragraph place that it asks you to tell stories. Dan is collecting stories of Sandra right now, and it would just mean the world. So thank you for the way in which you were all such good friends. And we give thanks for the life of Sandra Ellis. Is there any other business to come before the 2022 annual meeting? Hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
That Marvin Alexander?
Yes.
Marvin, I'll give that to you.
I second.
Barbara Robinson, I'll give you the second, the eager second. I didn't put this up as a poll, so I'm going to ask you all in favor, say aye or indicate with a thumbs up emoji. Or
Aye.
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 any opposed? Better not be. Any abstaining? All right. I declare that the 2022 annual meeting is no longer in session, but I will recognize Scott Ferguson. Nope, not recognizing Scott Ferguson. He raised his hand as part of his thumbs up. All right. Then I will ask the Reverend Julie Graham to close us in prayer.
Great. As I witness your faces on screen as icons of the light of Christ, I think we should close out. I've been inspired for us to close out with this prayer. So I'll ask us to come into the presence of God as we're always in the presence of God and pray. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is discord, union. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Grant that we may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. This is the work you've given us to do as a church on Delmar and Jackson. Amen.
Amen. Deacon Chester, would you dismiss us?
Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thank you all.